Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 100 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. We first just wanted to say thank you so much for checking us out and for listening. We're extremely grateful for it, and we love making this show. It started out as an outlet for Robin and myself to talk about the undersung animated movies and shows out there, and it's still pretty much that, but we've met some incredible people through it and discovered so many great, well-crafted films that deserve to be praised. So that brings us to this week's review. Robin and I are joined by friends of the show, Angus Beer and Meekly Sheepling, to talk about Katsuhiro Otomo's 1988 anime masterpiece, Akira. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy this one, and also wash your hands. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Not Joanna Eggs. I'm Robin.
And I'm Tracy. And it's our 100th episode.
Hooray.
And we've got two special guests with us, like definitely show favorites and absolutely awesome people. We have Angus Beer. Please introduce yourself, Angus, even though I just said your name.
Hello, I'm Angus, and I'm an artist, animator, and game dev.
Hell yeah, you are. And we've also got Meekly Sheepling. Please introduce yourself, Meekly.
Hello, I'm Meekly Sheepling. I am a student of animation, and I am an artist as well.
Hell yeah. All right. And we decided to do this particular film today just because obviously it's a milestone, and this movie in particular is a milestone of animation. So I think it just made sense that we're talking about motherfucking Akira.
Yeah.
The 1988. Oh God, what is his name? Katsuhiro Otomo?
Yes,
is that it?
ma'am.
Yes. Hell yeah. The movie based off of his manga series, which apparently was not actually finished up until 1990.
Oh,
It was
and this
not.
movie came out in 1988, so the ending is obviously different. But
Yeah, well, and I will talk about this a little bit later on, but there's a number of differences between this and the manga that I think are worth noting. Interestingly, even though he wrote the manga and he finished it, he apparently has been recorded saying that he thinks Akira works much better as an animated film because he can just pack so much more shit into it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, that and like honestly, the hallucination scenes alone,
Yeah.
like, admittedly, this has been a film. Like, okay, there's been talk about making a live action adaptation. I think since like the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure that Warner Brothers had bought the licensing rights to do it, whatever it was.
Since 2002,
Yeah, I know.
they've had the rights for it.
Yeah, and only recently, or at least I think within probably the past 3 years or so, Taika Waititi was apparently tied to being the director
Oh, okay.
of this
Oh.
newest one, but it has also been delayed indefinitely because he is directing the Thor, was it 3 sequel?
Love-
I think it's
Thor
sorry, Thor
Love and
4,
Thunder.
Oh,
which
Lord.
they didn't call Thor, which made me really sad. They totally should have, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean-
But no, so allegedly Akira was supposed to start shooting in July of 2019. That didn't happen because he's doing Thor 4 at this point. So I don't know. Who knows when we'll see this? But
If indeed at all.
but if anyone was going to handle it, I feel like he would be a great match for it, with possibly some guest directing by Guillermo Del Toro
Oh.
to get all the
Yeah.
body horror
Yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah.
hallucination
Yeah,
scenes.
yeah.
That would be a freaking killer
I
movie.
think
I'd
that
love
would
to see
be
that.
quite impressive.
Hell yeah.
So, if you're not familiar with Akira, it's a 1988 film. Before we briefly sort of jump into the plot, it's notable not only for just how like beautiful and fluid it is, but it was sort of the first big breaking anime film to hit internationally.
Yes.
Yeah, like in a more mainstream kind
Oh,
of way.
yeah, like-
Because like there have been things like Ghibli movies and Astro Boy and a bunch of other like animated
Right.
films before, but a lot of that was more regional. This was one that was made with I forget what it was, but it was a company named Streamline Distribution, I think,
Yeah,
was
at
the
the
company
time.
that ended up bringing it to the United States, and it became a huge cult classic here, and still is to this day.
And that was, so you'll notice there's 2 different dubs. I doubt you can find the 89 version anymore, but
Probably not.
in 2001, Animes / Pioneer Janaeon released a new dub, which I will talk about when we get there, but I do have some observations that tickle me about that. As a point of how like influential the movie and sort of to the same extent the manga is, Katsuhiro Otomo has been declared a Chevalier of the French Order of the Arts of Letters.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
What now?
So he's
Since when?
2005.
I mean, not that I'm offended,
Since
I'm just curious.
2005. He also is the 4th manga artist ever inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame.
Whoa.
Wow.
He was also awarded the Purple Medal of Honor by the Japanese government in 2013. Basically, the point being, like, I'm not saying it's all Akira, but I am saying, like, it is far and away his most popular. His number 2 is probably Steam Boy, which is another movie he did in, like, the mid-aughts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do remember seeing that, but I don't think it was as well received as this one
No.
was.
No,
obviously,
Steam Boy was
but
definitely a little more,
It was fine.
niche. Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine.
So, let's get into the very broad strokes plot, because this movie is 2 hours densely packed full of shit.
There's a lot going on.
It's dense, but at the same time, it's like it's a fairly straightforward thing. Like you can kind of break it down to like 2 childhood rivals basically get involved with like they're in a street gang, and they basically inadvertently become involved with a bunch of kids that have ESP, kind of like I guess I kind of like the shitty edgelord kid ends up getting the powers, and then of course uses them in the wrong way, and then he becomes a liability towards the government and indeed the world, and also his friendship.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? They're not so much rivals as they are like buddies. The problem is that your 2 main characters are Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Yeah. And in case you forget their names, don't worry. They say them like 80,000
Oh, they will
times.
scream them. It's actually like
The most lethal drinking game ever. I've tried it. It was not a good idea.
well before I ever saw Akira. That was how my friend who now lives in Israel would reference it. He would just scream Tetsuo at me.
Oh, yeah.
You
And then I would
know.
scream- Yeah, and
I
then
mean,
I would
if you ever get stuck in like a theme park, you just start saying that and then just figure out wherever they are.
yeah, and
you
then
know?
it's like Marco Polo, except it's Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Or Heavy Rain by you just saying Sean.
Sean!
Sean!
But yeah, so they're like, yeah, it's like Tracy said, they get into this thing, and so Tetsuo develops these psychic powers which go way off the charts.
He gets quite the complex from it.
Well, yeah, so that's the other thing. Like, he definitely is, on the one hand, he's definitely an example of, like, mad with power.
Yes.
But the other, like, sort of notable thing there that we see sort of hinted at throughout the movie is that Tetsuo was basically bullied as a kid. And Kaneda was basically, like, the leader of their biker gang and also his buddy and kind of, like, defender, almost.
Well, he was also one of the first kids to befriend him, too,
Yes.
back in the day. Because I guess it's implied that either Tetsuo was... I forget if he was, like, from a broken home or if he was adopted or something like that.
I think it was
but-
adopted.
Yeah.
I thought,
And
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was adopted, but then like you see him getting like beat up on the playground, and Kaneda actually like gets his action figure back for him, and then they become friends after that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's established there, but we don't really get why he's being such a butthole later. Like I guess it's just cause.
That scene also comes late in the movie, right?
Yeah.
We really just understand, like, Tetsuo's just kind of being a dipshit. Now,
Yeah.
in fairness, I think I think one of the things that makes it interesting and dangerous that he's the one who gets the powers is the other people who have the powers are like 10-year-old kids.
But they look like they're like 100 because they're so like
Yeah,
aged.
they never
and,
really-
and they turn blue for some reason.
They never really explain why they look like that. I think it has
just
to
run
do
with it.
I think it has to do with the medication that they take.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
That's supposed
That,
to,
like, they
like-
keep them drugged, so they're technically still the same age because their voices don't change, but they are blue and they're very wrinkled.
Yeah, and I think it like alters their physiology or something. I don't know. I'm shooting in the wind
It's
here.
fine. Maybe they explain in the manga. I don't know.
Could be, but that's the thing, right? You have these 3 kids who have powers, but then you have a former biker who is like fundamentally
Who
much
really likes wearing a cape.
well, and he's just
That is actually just a repurposed drape from
Yeah.
a burnt down department store.
yeah, but he's certainly that means he's fundamentally a much crueler person than
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kids.
Because like even if they do have the same kind of powers, like he's just using it for just kind of like destruction. It's like it's one thing like the kids like it's not really implied whether or not that they have a very decent life there.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they're more or less just kind of being used for military secrets and stuff, or like they were some of the kids that were in the same test group as Akira, who is the he's basically presented as like this entity more or less, but he really was just like a little kid that was just so
Yeah.
OP that they had to break his body up and put it into different jars.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so there's a few things there like that I think are super interesting. So like in the beginning of the movie, we get this sense that like someone is trying to spirit one of these kids away, and that seems like an important plot point, which probably it is in the manga, but it never really comes up again. why that kid wants to escape. It's sort of implied that yes, they are like sheltered, but maybe they're not treated super well. Also, on the note of those kids, I have to ask this question. Do we think that one character from the Venture Brothers is influenced by the redheaded kid?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the kid that was in like the little car thing.
Yes,
the floating platform.
The little kid in the floating
Yes.
platform. Yeah. Do we think
Yeah, he did remind me of
influenced
Dermot, if
Billy?
that's what
Dermot,
you're asking.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I was also gonna say, possibly that one bully from King of the Hill that has like the gross like blonde ponytail thingy, but it's like a rat tail.
Oh.
You know what I'm
Yes.
talking
Yes.
about? The kid who's like paddling Peggy, like that kid. He reminds me of him.
Oh, not clicking for me, but
It's fine.
It's
I
good.
mean, but can we also just state that like how I like that within the aesthetic that they have for this movie, because this kind of was one of those films that defined cyberpunk, like just like how The Matrix and
Yeah.
a bunch of other movies did. But I like that it's both, it shows the future, but it's objectively really shitty
Yes.
because there's so much crime and everything's on fire.
This is like one of my favorite takes on cyberpunk, and it being the first is really impressive because when I think
Yeah.
of modern ones, they're almost just too clean and too nice, even when shit's going on.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like none of those screens that you can expand out with your hands. Like, no, everything looks gross
Yeah.
and everyone's depressed.
Like gross
Yeah.
beauty, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
the
But the buildings are still really pretty, and there's like virtual like ads and stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't have like it's the same thing I think like Blade Runner 2049 does really well.
Yes, thank you for
is-
dropping that name.
You're welcome. Like you get a sense of future, but also like it's like one partially in reach, but two, it's very lived in, right? I
Yes.
think so
Mhm.
often sci-fi and sometimes cyberpunk stuff looks like you're walking through an endless Apple store,
Oh god, yes.
Yeah.
which is perhaps my least favorite aesthetic
Mhm.
ever.
As cool as the Apple Store may seem, sometimes it's also extremely sterile. There's very little personality. It seems
Uh-huh.
extremely unforgiving. There's no genuine comfort that you experience with it.
Right.
But at least in this thing, you're like, hey, I remember that place. They pipe bombed it
Yeah.
yesterday.
Right.
You can get attached to places before they get destroyed.
Absolutely.
Not so in the Apple Store. Everything will just look the same afterwards.
Yep.
God, I don't know. But anyway, yes, let's get into like the actual dynamic between Tetsuo and Kaneda, because Kaneda himself, like even though he's the head of the biker gang, he keeps going after this revolution named K.
Yes.
Yes.
Spelled Kei. Like, I mean, she's clearly just like, she does not care. Like, she wants nothing to do with him, basically. But she's like, okay, like, look, like, I love that she just is completely just like unfazed.
No-
She's like, no, I
no
hate you.
time
I don't
for
want to
it.
have anything to do with you.
It's
I
You
love
don't
Best
care.
kind of characters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
And also the disciplinary teacher that I think she evades seeing. But he was one of my favorite parts.
I love
Like-
I love Kaneda because he's such a lovable rogue of a character. Also, I desperately want his jacket.
yes.
Oh my god, yes, absolutely. They were selling reproductions of it for a while. You could probably still find one, but like
Unlikely to exist in my size.
maybe, but you never know. But like, and also the fact that they have all of the it's like they took the idea of having the light cycles that they had in Tron, but now it's cool
Yes.
because everyone is like beating the
looks
shit out of
good.
each other, and people saw this movie.
Yeah, what if
They
we
didn't see
did
Tron
light
and they didn't see
cycles,
Tron
but
Legacy.
like we just fought each other like
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
biker
it's
gang.
like they're light cycles, but we can apparently run so quickly that we can just kick you off of the bike straight through the
Oh.
face. Like,
man.
I love
I can't
shots like
stress
that.
this enough. Like how this movie is extremely violent. We should
Oh
say
my
that.
God.
Yes.
I think it's like to quote A Clockwork Orange, it's kind of a bit of the old ultra violence.
Yeah, quite a bit, and even a bit of the old in out, or at least Kaori gets assaulted and eventually
Oh, man,
gets
yeah.
Yeah.
destroyed by Tetsuo's gross body,
I forgot about
which we'll
that.
talk
and
about later.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that still bothers me a lot.
Yeah, me too.
So I do want to talk about the voice cast a little bit real quick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the two big ones are Tetsuo and Kaneda. Kaneda, voiced by your boy Johnny Young Bosch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
former Power Ranger, Lelouch of the Revolution, all these things.
Yeah.
yeah.
The one that destroyed me when I watched it today or the other day was that I realized Tetsuo is voiced by none other than Tai from Digimon.
No.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh no.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, "Motherfucker!" Are
So
you
that
kidding?
means that someone could make a YouTube poop using his lines and
Yes.
then just put it over Thai
Absolutely.
Oh,
I bet someone's
man!
done that. Oh,
I
if
need it.
no one's done that, they really should.
Oh, man, that's so good.
You would have to really listen in to like hear Ty though, but you do hear him here and there. So
I think you hear him early on, but because he spends so much time screaming and yelling.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like most of it. They do a lot of screaming. They have they drop a lot of swears and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's just like real life.
yeah, oh my God.
Screaming and swearing, that's what we do.
It's like looking into a mirror.
Yeah. An awful, gross, preposterous mirror.
Slightly destroyed, singed mirror.
Yeah. Well, so that's one thing in the background that I think is interesting that gets brought up but not really addressed, which is it presents differently in the manga, is that this is post-World War III. But we don't know what caused World War III or anything else about it. We just know that it basically nuked Japan or Tokyo.
Well, I think whatever it was, or I read this just before we started recording, but I think it was supposed to be implied that Akira was used as the weapon to nuke Tokyo 3, which is why he was then like re-encased under the stadium for the Tokyo Olympics.
So I think in this version of it, in the movie, what probably happens is that Akira probably has a moment similar to Tetsuo in that he like loses control and sort of stops existing more or less, but they're able to preserve some part of his body. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't get if that was the case, I didn't get the impression that it was supposed to be malicious or mean-spirited like it was with Tetsuo.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, and Tetsuo's explosion even wasn't mean-spirited because he had lost control by the end of it, right?
Yeah, well, and they had to use Akira to basically stop him because he would have just kept going indefinitely.
Right. Now, the interesting thing to me is in the manga, Akira is responsible for that explosion, but did it maliciously.
Really?
Yeah, so in the...
But he was still a little kid at that point?
I'm not sure. What I understand is this, is that Akira in the manga is like a very maliciously motivated character, but because the power has like overtaken him, it's basically wiped out his personality.
Okay.
And so he's this like super stoic, evil mastermind type of character.
So he more becomes like a weapon of mass destruction than as opposed to an actual person. Everything is just about like destroying things.
Something like this, right? And he sort of like drags Tetsuo into that in the manga, as opposed to Tetsuo sort of his own thing in this movie where he's like trying to figure out who Akira is because he just heard the name and it made him, and then he got really angry about things.
Who is Akira?
And then he destroyed their play place.
That was so rough.
Your parents bought your Happy Meals hours ago. You should leave.
Can we...
It was like really well designed though. I thought it was
I love their play place. On the note of the kids and their play place, can we talk very briefly about the scene in which they come to him in their dreams and the giant versions of their toys?
Fuck yeah,
great.
we can. Because that was my favorite scene in the movie. There's a lot of trippy animation in this, so don't watch it really high because it'll probably mess you up for the night. I didn't, but I'm just saying,
such a bad
if you
trip.
did, it's not a good idea. Just don't do it.
It's one of those things, because I saw it when I was quite young, like, I'm used to a lot of these things.
Dear.
Oh, no.
So, I don't know if it's just me, and I think it is just me, but some of this stuff is like...
No one else but you.
Well, I'm sure there's other people, but, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of like tame compared to some other things I've seen. Like, some other animes are kind of like, hey, here's a really wacky scene. Oh, isn't that wacky? And then this one, I don't know. It's so, like, heartwarming. I don't know.
What?
Well, okay, so I
Pump
can...
the brakes.
Wait.
Sorry, what?
No,
I can see this argument.
It's kind of like...
Hold on.
I think the way to explain it is like, he's obviously tripping about something, but he's tripping about something that makes sense. He's thinking about... He's in the sort of children's minds, and those children are thinking about those toys. So he's tripping about the toys, he's tripping about the milk, because he recently had a glass of... he had a glass of water, but, you can kind of see links within it. So, even though it doesn't make sense, there is some sense to it. It's not like, I don't know... Pink elephants.
Question is, how old were you when you saw it, Angus?
I mean, I wasn't young. I mean, still 12.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I thought you were gonna say like 7. I'm like, no, dog. No, this ain't
Not
it.
okay. Where were they? Where were your parents?
No, I mean, I guess that's true, because, like, honestly, Angus, to that point, like, if you guys have ever seen Princess Mononoke, like, there's a certain scene, like, in the very beginning where, like, I think it's at least within the first 10 or 15 minutes, you get to see a guy get his arm clean shot off with an arrow.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It separates like it's a side of beef.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I thought that was pretty creepy too. Like, there's a lot of body horror stuff in that as well.
Oh yeah.
But I think it just the visceral thing for me is that like eventually realizing that he is hallucinating, you know, like and like to the extent that the kids like use all the other materials that are in the room to form the bigger versions of the toys to freak him out.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure about like how that sort of manifested, right? Because the kids don't have the sort of malicious intent. I think they were trying to speak with him, but then they made the bigger versions, which freaked him out. What makes me uncomfortable in that scene is them leaking white liquid, which we don't initially know is milk.
Supposed to be milk.
Honestly, I do not think there's any.
Here's where it makes me really uncomfortable.
It doesn't make it better. I'll say that.
No. Well, but here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Is the one kid appears as a giant car toy, and it suddenly expands as it's spitting up the milk, and you can see veins in the bottom of the car, and then it spits out white liquid, and I'm like,
Dude, honestly,
I hate this so much.
I think that's just. I hate to say this, but I think that's just.
I don't think I'm the only one.
No, I thought it was
by
gross too.
A weird pulsating
I'm gonna
flesh
get on this
spitting
bandwagon
white
with you,
liquid.
Robin. I still thought it was gross. I mean,
like,
I'm not used to seeing a car have veins. I don't like this. Unless, is this what the Cars universe is trying to tell us? Are the cars powered by milk?
We are not touching the Cars universe with this,
cows
please.
Are canonically in the Cars universe.
I can't do it.
We're bringing it back.
My mind can't handle it, please.
It's gonna happen. But no, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think the reason I liked it so much is just because I'm such a fan of experimental animation.
Yes.
Oh,
that,
sure.
Like, that was the kind of thing that stuck with me. But I also just don't like seeing a glass go into someone's foot. Like, I thought that was gross. I don't like blood stuff. I don't like gore of any kind, and that would have freaked me out too.
Man, that had to make
the kids even agreed with you.
Yeah,
they even called him a weirdo.
Yeah. See, the milk bleeding toys are agreeing with me.
Yeah.
Finally,
the validation you needed from toys that bleed
I never
milk.
thought I knew I needed that one, but I'm happy to have it.
I think
oh boy.
I do praise that this film. I mean, animes do this in general, but the fact that the blood is in bright red, because if it was trying to be realistic and it had all kinds of other tones of red, it would be too gross. Whereas this is like gross enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
like the new modern tampon ads that feature actual blood colors. They just started doing that.
No,
Like,
that
look, guys, only took
I
you
hate
60 years. I
don't
hate it
miss
too,
that.
but at least it doesn't look like windshield wiper fluid anymore.
I mean, that's fair. Can we talk? We talked a little bit about this, but I do want to kind of circle back to it. How shitty everything is. Can we talk real quick about the fucking like high school or whatever that Kaneda and his friends are supposed to be at? Because what a fucking shithole!
It's like if Degrassi was in like the worst part of Detroit. Like, it just sucks.
Yeah, after Detroit got fucking bombed, even like.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think
honestly,
Detroit aspires to be that shitty.
Yeah.
Actually, no, yeah, that is a fair point. I do like that everything is just so decrepit. They still have teachers there inexplicably, even though it's like that's got to be like one of the worst jobs ever. It's like, by the way, you have to go to an inner city school, but you have to go to this particular school for wayward youth, and it's like, oh great, I can't wait for them to start just trying to set my car on fire.
In defense of that school's administration, they don't take shit.
Yeah, discipline.
Discipline. They all walk out with like sore cheeks, which is not okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
but
here at Neo Tokyo Prep, we will beat your child senseless until they learn the value of following the rules.
Yeah, I think that sort of feeds into this theme, which is present in the movie, but also like kind of gets called out by the Colonel. Is there's no interest in reconstruction, only destruction.
Yeah. Like, because everyone is just a hedonistic monster in this universe, basically.
I don't even think they're all hedonists. I think that, like, what we see with the younger characters is that they're very disaffected and sort of disillusioned. They understand that the government has no interest in them, so they're trying to, like, assert themselves in some way, and that unfortunately ends up being hyper-violent biker gangs.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, as is games. Tradition.
Yeah.
It's the thing that kind of bums me out about this too is that like it's just like overwhelmingly like there is no real respite from any of the craziness because there are just religious cults everywhere. There's another terrorism bombing in the same tunnel. It's like there's everything is on fire and yelling at you.
Well, yeah, and so that's one of the things that Otomo really wanted to capture, because when he was remember, he's born in 1954. So when he was a teenager, he would go to Tokyo to see movies, and so he saw basically that kind of like madness just kind of coming at him all the time. And so that's why he's got like the terrorists and the religious cults and the political organizations and all this shit, which was super big in the 60s and 70s in Japan, I guess.
Yeah, because like in general, you don't really see demonstrations like that in Tokyo, not to that extent anyway, or like definitely not with like religious fanatics like that. Like honestly, not since like the 1996 what was it, the subway bombings?
Yeah,
that was happening.
I think so.
Yeah, that was happened by that religious cult that was operating out of there. But that's to my knowledge, I believe that is kind of few and far in between at this point.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be.
No, yeah, I mean, and for a good reason, and frankly, the world is better for it. But I don't. It's just so depressing because it's like you keep seeing like that guy with that stupid wig, just like they're just graffitiing everything, and then they just get tear gassed right in the face, and it's like, oh, okay,
Jeez.
all right. But this is an extremely dense film, but I do like the fact that the Colonel he's attempting to try to see whether or not they can hone the new talents that Tetsuo has. But of course, Tetsuo just has no interest in it whatsoever.
Right.
So he gets to the point where he's like, well, I guess we have to like possibly kill Tetsuo if he's not willing to comply with us or attempt to get treatment for it. Because he has no interest in trying to contain it by any means. No medication. His friends can't intervene with him. Not even his girlfriend can.
He just wanted that bike.
Yeah, he really wanted to. And Tetsuo stole the bike. Kaneda stole the bike. It wasn't even his bike to begin with. He stole it from somebody else.
He stole it and then modded the shit out of it, apparently.
Yeah, there you go.
So, like, you know.
So he knows his way around a garage. That's fine. Like, there's nothing stopping Tetsuo from trying to do that, too. But I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so that's actually the Colonel's interesting, right? Because he's also one of the other themes that like we kind of talked about this, the disillusionment of the youth. He represents then this sort of like old guard, old-fashioned view of things.
Yeah.
And so that's why like he's trying to exert and push that kind of like idea onto Tetsuo, but Tetsuo again as this biker is not into it at all. Does not give a fucking shit.
Well, and the only person that I was really kind of unclear about in terms of his motivations was, I guess he was I think he was like some kind of industrialist or politician that was working with Ryu.
I was thinking that too.
Who is one of the demonstrators.
Oh.
I didn't quite get what he wanted. I don't know. Because, like, granted, as I mentioned before, like, the script is very dense and everything. But I was under the impression that he had some kind of partnership going on with it. Like, maybe he was bankrolling the revolutionaries and trying to get them to I'm guessing that he was staging some kind of coup in order to like get the kids out of that facility by utilizing them as basically muscle to get them out of there.
That wouldn't
to
shock
try to use
me.
them for himself, I guess. I don't know.
That's also.
But I just thought he looked like a gopher.
I mean, he did.
I called him the Rat Man.
Yeah.
Oh
my God,
Fair.
so true.
Fair.
I was calling him Peter Pettigrew.
Oh my God. Magnificent person,
Meekly
you.
just fucking nails it.
Meekly out of the park.
Yep.
Fantastic.
I think he and Ryu and Kei are probably the biggest manifestations of like characters that probably have a much larger role in the manga.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Kei. So the manga is 6 volumes, like 6 heavy volumes, and Kei is it's literally volume 4 and 5 are Kei 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Damn.
Nice.
So it's so she's a secondary protagonist, and the reason that obviously she's like not interested in Kaneda in the movie, but it does become a thing apparently in the manga.
Yeah.
Which fine. I also like that dynamic.
Yeah. That's fine.
I have no time for you, but
I do like that they don't really try to make it a thing in the movie itself.
Yeah.
It's like they do, but they don't. It's like there's no forced real romantic thing.
Yeah.
It's more just like, oh, they're all leaving together, and I'm just like, that's fine. You know, just keep it at that.
It's better that than like.
And also, Kay could do better.
Yes.
But like, just in general, come on.
When it comes to things that are left out from the manga, it's kind of, I think to myself, with many of those things, it's better to leave them out than try to rush them in and cram them into a 2-hour movie. If they try to rush a relationship into this movie, it would have just kind of like, you would have kind of predicted it. If there was a sequel, for instance, save it for that. But then obviously this is not that kind of movie, and I'm glad.
No.
You know.
Well, and also you kind of even if they weren't like supposed to be romantically like shipped together or whatever.
Yes.
Like you get to see the kind of parallels between like how Kaneda and Tetsuo both treat the women that are involved in their lives. Where like Kaneda, like he, as much of a Chad as he is, he still goes out of his way to attempt to like, you know, help out Kay. Like it's not necessarily unconditionally. Obviously, he's still a shithead teenager, but like he still accompanies her. He's trying to do the right thing, and he's still looking out for his friend, as opposed to Tetsuo, who just goes about everything completely selfishly.
Pretty much.
Can't really defend Kaori when she's getting assaulted by those bikers.
Oh yeah, he cared about the bike more too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he stole kind of his bike totally out of jealousy, and then eventually he ends up smothering Kaori to death once he becomes this gross monstrosity of like
I mean,
flesh
not on
and
purpose,
shit.
but
Not on purpose.
I
No,
will say-
but he also can't contain it either, which is like it's because he did not allow himself to have any restrictions for it,
Right.
for boundaries. Really,
I will say, I think that there is. How do I put this? I think there's something like kind of weirdly queer about Tetsuo, and here's why. Like, one, he's not. Kaori seems like almost a prop to him.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is not good, but also he has a dream about dying, and the first name he says is Kaneda.
So you think he's got a case of the not gays?
I think he might. I think he might, or there's something. I think there's something in there that's beyond a sexuality that they felt like exploring. But I agree with Angus that there's a lot in that. They packed this thing full, and I think that he's right that to try and give everything its due sort of process was probably a good idea.
I think it would be a really hard sell to have a 2.5 hour like sci-fi anime film. And like number one, they probably just didn't have that in the budget because at the time that this came out, this was like the most expensively budgeted anime film ever. I think it was at was it 9 million?
It was 9 million in dollars, and then it was 1 billion in yen. And it's like that makes it sound way more expensive because when you say $9 million, that sounds like nothing for a typical animated or rather a American CG film. But that's a lot for this
especially
kind of
nowadays,
film.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Like, nowadays, that's a drop in the bucket. I was just be like, man, I really hope those animators got paid
Oh
decently.
yeah, absolutely.
In retrospect, I was like, guys, that's not enough money. That's sausage party money.
Oh,
Remember, it's also in 1988, right?
Yeah.
The other thing, in terms of like the length and breadth of stuff put in this, originally, Otomo claims he filled 2,000 pages of notebooks.
Oh man.
And trimmed the storyboard down to 738 pages, which is still so much.
That's like War and Peace still.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there was something. I think they had over 2,000 different scenes, and I think it was 160,000 frames of animation.
That sounds about
which
right.
is, I think it's just crazy because given the amount of detail that they have, it's that. So granted, this did come out in 1988, but there still is really not that much CGI.
Yes.
So predominantly, everything that you are seeing is hand drawn,
Yep.
meaning all the motorcycle chases. Tetsuo's grotesque transformation later, the initial atomic bomb thing. Like I think the only things that were really used for CGI was that weird I think it was like a wavelength.
I don't quite know what
his
that
power
thing
level
that they were
was.
kind of like using to quote unquote measure his power.
Yeah.
That thing. And then I think some of it was just for like tracking and pointing out specific like trajectories for like say where the motorcycle was going to be going
or how buildings
like, where
would
the shot
fall.
was going to go. Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that.
Because like it's just knowing that specifically is just astronomical.
Yeah.
Like it's so cool.
Can we?
The amount of work
'Cause
you
I-
put into it.
Since you mentioned it, Tracy, the bike thing. Can we talk about how after their one friend dies, Tetsuo or God damn it, every time.
I know. It's
Kaneda-
impossible.
Who is it?
Because all they do is say each other's names.
Kaneda jumps on his bike and then runs it into a wall
Yeah.
as
just
like an homage to his friend. And I'm like, my buddy's dead, so I'm gonna give him his bike by fucking killing myself. What?
It's like pouring one out for the homies is destroying another motorcycle. It's like we could have used that, you dick.
Nope,
Like,
fuck
it's
you.
still the apocalypse.
No, it was his.
Yeah. He wanted it this way.
I think in that reckless environment, like that is a tribute.
Yeah.
But then to all of us, we're like, "What the
Oh,
fuck you doing?" You know.
I mean, yeah, right. It's perfect inside of the movie. It's hilarious to us. as
Yes.
viewers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just like that's extremely extra, but very on brand for him.
Yeah.
My homie.
I wanted to go back to when you were saying about like when they animate vehicles and stuff. Like, it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
brings out. I don't know. It brings out this kind of like inner boomer inside me, where I'm like, I much prefer
An inner boomer inside you.
because like I'm looking at it, and a lot of modern animes, I don't know, like I don't watch all the quote unquote, I don't know how to say it, but anyway, but certain animes they use CG alongside it, and sometimes I just think it stands out way too much. Like something is too
it's
smooth.
too clean. It's too pristine looking.
Yes, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh my god, I much prefer when the cars are being animated like this, and you know the way that they rotate, and I just get you get that sort of animator envy, you know, like you know, sort of thing.
I mean, it's really frustrating, like that shift.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you also get to appreciate it more because, like, since the color palette in general is so dark because a lot of it takes place at night, that like you can still make out all the detail like totally clearly because like they just have a great sense of space and like because like when there are certain wrecks and stuff, you can feel it. Like when someone gets like toppled over or whatever, hits like a beam or a tractor trailer or something. Yeah, like the impacts on this are like amazing. Like not that I need to tell you that, but
everything fucking hits.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, there's a great sense of weight to everything. Like so, all the fight scenes are really, really cool. Like I think just the fact that the idea of having telekinetic kids in general, I would think would probably be creepy. But like these kids make it work because they clearly hate their lives.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make the most of it, and they're just like, well, the government's paying for this really cool house for us, so I guess we got to make do.
Well, and I think the other thing that like makes those kids really good is because they understand their weird place in society and as people, they kind of have like bonded together almost. And so they have their little like, because they have these powers and because they can psychically talk to each other and no one else can, they have this very tight little circle that's just their friends, which arguably sort of mirrors the group of Kaneda and Tetsuo at the beginning, except they're not expressing themselves through violence. They just do weird psychic shit.
Yeah.
Just similar to how Tetsuo wants out of his lot in life, like Takashi, who is the first kid that you see getting escorted by one of the resistance members. There's got to be some kind of drive there about wanting to leave and wanting to be separate from that kind of community. He may still care about the other kids very much, but he's like, I think he probably got to a point where he's like, no, fundamentally, I know that this is wrong. They're going to be using us as weapons and everything, and I don't want any part of it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's...
It's still sad just because they're still little kids, you know?
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, the way that this whole, like... That, I mean, I think that's one thing that Otomo is kind of interested in doing with Akira, the manga probably more so than this, is, like, how fucked up that is, right?
Well, and also we see them all kind of rise together at the ending. I mean, I guess this is probably a good time to talk about it as any because not only is it just an incredible set piece, but just the amount of detail that goes into everything.
Oh yeah.
Because like so we by that final scene we end up being transported to the Tokyo Stadium, which is supposed to be there for the Olympics, which I believe at the date that they showed earlier it was about 147 days away. So, which is
that sounds about
kind
right.
of ironic because up until about a week ago, the Tokyo Olympics, well, actually, not even at this point, like 3 days ago, the Tokyo Olympics have been postponed to 2021 due to, pandemic concerns, which is legit.
Yeah.
But, it's, it still sucks. But, like, it is very coincidental because they only decide who gets the Olympics, I think, like, maybe 10 years in advance. So they just happen to get it, which is crazy because this was prophesized in 1988 and it's happening now.
Crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's meant to be like sometimes hosting the Olympics is seen as like, it's obviously like a status thing.
Yeah.
Right. But it's significant here in the movie because it's also often seen as like an economic boom recovery thing. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, Japan in this version of reality in Akira is recovering from World War III, gets picked for the Tokyo Olympics, and that means a lot.
Yeah,
and then
even though
it explodes.
Even though Neo Tokyo is an obvious shithole, and mayhaps they should have reevaluated where they had everything set up. But
so the argument of it would probably have been that the money that we get from the Olympics in 2020 will allow us to revitalize and prime pump or whatever, whatever kind of dumb rhetoric they
dog
use
FIFA
to describe.
tried that. It did not work.
I mean, it's real fucking shitty. The effects of the
great.
Olympics are horrendous on local area.
Yeah. But Hey, at the very least, it provides a cool gauntlet for for both of our leads here to basically battle each other to the death, more or less.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Tetsuo manages to make himself his own little throne with his gross cape, and he made himself a metal arm after having some kind of run-in with the military.
The fucking orbital bombardment vaporizes his arm.
Yeah.
But then he just puts it back together Terminator style, and you're like, that's gross. But hopefully that doesn't backfire.
On the one hand,
him.
cool. On the other hand, gross.
Yeah, it probably smells gross. But yeah, like, but that is, I don't know, maybe.
You would think of
but
that.
then of course it gets to the point where Kaori finds him there, and then he's basically starting to go berserk, and he has no control over it whatsoever. The colonel comes in and is trying to intervene and trying to get him to go back to the facility to get some kind of treatment, so that he basically does not die in that Coliseum. But of course he doesn't do it because Tetsuo knows best, I guess.
No.
And then of course his body starts fighting against him and starts becoming massive and gross.
Yep.
And it's probably one of the most incredible scenes in the film, because
It was.
my God, if that doesn't stay with you, I don't know what will.
It was like rising like yeast.
Yeah, no,
No,
I was
that's
like,
accurate.
you put in too much. Like, make a smaller batch next time. Honestly, that would be like an amazing gingerbread man. It's just like a gigantic,
Aw.
like we divided it into sections. Who wants the face?
All veiny
Yeah.
and warty.
Yeah, it's so
Ugh,
gross. Calories
Awful.
in this pocket.
Oh no.
Nope. Don't want that
No,
one.
no, not a fan.
Be glad it's animated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because imagine in real life, like, oh god.
Yeah, and that
Nope.
was the crazy thing to me too, is that like, look, I get that there's supposed to be some kind of demand for making this in live action, fine, but I think in this scene in particular, you just can't do it justice.
Nope.
Because
Yep.
it's all hand animated. Like, that's so mind blowing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no way you can recreate this live action.
Yeah.
I do also want to kind of home in on this scene because I think it points to one of the reasons that I really love this movie
Yeah.
is that at the end because it's a trope I'm a sucker for, but like at the end of it he starts losing control and Kaneda's there and Tetsuo starts asking Kaneda to help him, and so Kaneda understands that the thing he unfortunately needs to do is kill his childhood friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
In order to spare him, which I'm not a super huge fan of, obviously, like the, I guess, like almost a euthanasia argument there, but like that moment of like at the in the direst moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still that kernel of friendship that unites them.
Aw.
And it's also a person that he trusts, that I think like deep down Tetsuo knows that Kaneda really does have his best interest at heart. Because like
Right.
that was like the first thing that he ever did for him too, was just trying to stick up for him and get his toy
Yes.
back, which is like, it shows that Kaneda, as much of a doofus as he is still fundamentally an okay kind of person.
He's a good-hearted dude.
Yeah,
at the
I
end
mean,
of the
because like
day.
he wouldn't still be looking out for Tetsuo, but Tetsuo takes it as though it's like he's feeling sorry for him.
Yeah.
And then that's how it's manifesting, because he's got a lot of pathological envy towards Kaneda, which
Yeah.
is not great. But they're also kids. It's like that's kind of natural at that age.
Yeah.
But also he will die from it. So literally by being engulfed by it. So
Yeah. Well, I had something else, but I lost. Oh no, this was it. So I think I'm probably wrong, but so I did want to point this out. The toy that I'm thinking this is the case. The toy I'm betting you that Kaneda takes back to give back to Tetsuo.
Uh-huh.
I'm betting you is a reference to I think it's called Tetsugen 28 or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, because Katsuhiro Otomo, he also drew that. I think
He did not.
No, didn't he? I thought he did.
No, he was just a real big fan.
Oh, son of a bitch. Yeah, no, because that was the whole origin of the numbers on the kids' hands too.
Yep, that's why they
Oh.
have the numbers. That's where
Yeah.
he got the name Akira. It's where he got the name, I think, Tetsuo and Kaneda, but I could be wrong.
Is this a
But
fan
yeah, that-
fiction? Is this movie a fucking
not-
fan fiction?
it's-
A high
It's not a
budgeted
fan
fiction.
It's just
It's a high
like
concept,
really
it's fine.
inspired.
Bigger than Star Wars ever could be.
Yeah, damn Skippy, it's bigger than
God
Star Wars
damn.
ever could be. This is world development, George Lucas.
Anything is better than Star Wars.
Take a lesson, motherfucker.
I don't know who to blame anymore for Star Wars, frankly, but anyway.
George Lucas ruined my
Realistically,
childhood.
just the rat.
Yeah, Angus. God, I do like it when there are just like certain like little things that they'll kind of sneak in to the film too.
Yeah.
Like just like how they have like actual advertisements, like Yebisu beer is an actual beer company in Japan, and like some other, but it's not like like the grotesque kind of product placement. Like look, as much as I love Neon Genesis Evangelion, the show is shameless when it comes to product placement, especially in the movies.
I'll do you one better.
Everyone
and
wants a finger in that pie. I get it. It's fine.
Well, I'll do you one better. It's called Death Stranding, where Monster Energy
God.
drink is a
my
fucking
God.
mechanic.
I just love that they have product
off.
placement of Monster cans whenever you whenever you have to like regroup after going out.
Yes.
You guys saw the Sonic
That
movie?
and
Huh?
the
Go
other
ahead.
one I'm thinking of is in Final Fantasy 15, the ramen advertisements.
Oh my god. Oh no, Angus, were you talking about the Sonic movie where it's got?
Have you ever tried that ever-ending pasta bowl? It's delicious. I love that pasta bowl, like Olive Garden.
Oh, just look, they gave us a gift card to Olive Garden. Well, when you're there, your family.
I'm
please,
so angry
stupid.
that I
please
didn't see
sponsor
that.
us, Olive Garden. Please sponsor us.
That was
How bad was that movie? Because I really am angry I didn't see it.
I thought it was fine. I mean, like, we were the only people that were laughing. They made 2 Fortnite references,
Yeah.
but
Like-
Yikes.
whatever.
I grew up as a big Sonic fan, and watching that, I was very, very much, and I enjoyed it. It was one of those things I was extremely salty when I first, like everyone, seeing the first designs, but I saw it. There was that deep childhood part inside of me that was just insulted because of the, because of things like, no, it was like, when you're a kid and someone messes with your toys or something, and you're just like,
Yeah.
That was my instinctual reaction to seeing the first designs.
Because you have like some kind of mental ownership towards
Oh, yeah.
it. I know that sounds weird, but it's like if you have a certain
that's
affiliation for like a product or something.
Yeah.
It's like when Pokemon stopped drawing Pikachu all chubby, I got real mad. Because I was like, I want him to be fat.
Just
gave him
Either
a
way, he's
neck.
fat. Why did you thin him? Why did you
Yes.
fat shame my boy?
Yeah, fat
but
shaming,
like
boy.
no, but I mean, I thought the movie, it was fine. Like,
Sure.
I could definitely tell we were obviously the oldest people there that weren't parents, but we had a good time. It was the best Valentine's Day I've probably had in a while.
Aw.
So
Aw.
Fair enough.
yeah, we went there, but actually no, we went the day early, so we were those people. But
Sure.
actually, we got to take a survey after it to like ask about certain products and what we'd like to see in the next movie. That was
That's
weird.
hilarious.
But we went to the first screening that day, and I was like, holy shit! I was like, all right, boop boop boop, and there you go. Maybe they'll invite us to the next screening. I don't know, for like the sequel, but who knows?
It's wacky how that had the most normal release this year of all films,
Yeah.
and it was
Yes.
delayed, and it was delayed too. But
Yeah.
let's get back to
Well, yeah.
Akira before
Yeah, let's
we
get back to Akira.
go on.
There was one thing I wanted to mention. Within
Yeah,
the
hit me.
Pioneer dub, like, they're obviously not going to get the lip syncing right, and that bothered me a little bit, but it made me think that there's so much detail and expression that I'm like, okay,
Yes.
they just can't keep up with the script and the lip singing, so they did the best they could, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it's also an extremely fast-paced movie too. Like, it may be 2 hours, but it really doesn't waste that much time at all.
Yeah.
Like, there's some exposition dumps, but it's mostly like military shit.
Yeah.
Because like everything
Yeah.
else, like they just kind of show it to you. So
Well, and again, it's just so dense.
yeah, we can't stress this enough. It's the pineapple upside down cake of anime films.
As
It's delicious and it's dense.
as long as the
so
screams were in
dense.
sync, I think we'll all be fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as long as I could remember who Tetsuo and who Kaneda was.
Just remember,
that's all I
Tetsuo has
need.
the giant forehead that bothers me.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Just a little
he's
bit.
got like an 8 head. I was like, what the hell?
It's a 5
It's
head
my
right
aesthetic.
It was like Syndrome from The Incredibles.
Because I thought you just said it's his perspective. It's my perspective, or like that's just how he draws. I'm like, yeah, I know that's how he draws. He kind of veers. Like I will say this. Like I don't know. Like there are some people that do this, but I kind of get some sort of same face stuff. But whatever. Like I'll get past it. All the characters are very distinct
Yeah.
and unique in a lot more ways.
I mean,
so I'll get past it.
I think in this case it was deliberate. Like, I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
It was probably just
so-
to keep it all in universe. So
They all also have very distinct outlines, right?
Yeah.
So like they're very easy to
Yeah.
differentiate from one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did it for me was the jaw shape too, because I'm like, that's got to make it a lot easier to animate too, because they're having to learn a lot
Oh,
less
yeah, fuck
facial
that.
structures to like have to animate. I was like, nah, dude, if for $10 million, it's fine.
Yeah,
I'll get past
it's
it.
okay.
Yeah. In general, I really like these kind of films. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, a review summed it up really well, where they said, this is a film made for no one specifically, and yet anyone can like it, you know. It's not appealing, you know, you think about modern anime, stereotypically, they're like, you know, let's get the Neko girls in, let's get, I don't know,
Well,
fan
yeah,
service
it's
in.
marketed at a very specific demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like very specific niche things like, oh, this is for the sci-fi people. This is for the people who like elves.
Yeah.
This is for, you know.
You're much more generous about anime production than I am. It's all generated
Yeah.
towards one group of fucking pervy bitches.
And like,
And that is me. But no.
and it is one of those things that it annoys me with like how anime is represented or represents itself now, because you know that's what people think of, and I've met people who don't like anime, and I think to myself, guys, you would love this, but they know other anime, you know, they know that kind of thing, and then I'm thinking this, you know, the fact that also the way the mouths are animated, the way the backgrounds are animated, it's not cheap looking. It's not cheap looking or budget cutted. But
it's all blended very smoothly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's extremely dynamic. Like everything, all the elements work together.
It's also an element of, I look at this and I think to myself, we would never ever get an anime like this again, because it's one of the most expensive. It's one of the most expensive ever made, and styles have changed and ways companies make things have changed so much that it's like, this is like a one. I don't know. It's like a capsule, just a capsule of the best of animation of the time. Like all in one movie.
Like it only could have come out of that kind of time frame.
Yeah.
Really. As great as it is to have more modern techniques and stuff with animation, it all kind of does end up looking samey eventually.
Oh yeah, well you
Pretty
can definitely
much,
see you can see it most in the way that women are animated in anime anymore,
Yep.
which hurts me on a spiritual level.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
But then you look at some of the girlfriends in this, and I'm like, man, these look like 1960s housewives gone wrong.
Sure.
Yeah, no,
Something happened. Like, one of them looks like
Although-
Lucille Ball, for God's sake.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I think the good thing.
No,
Go on.
no, I'm sorry. One of them, it looks like I Love Lucy. I was like, what the hell is wrong with your hair?
Sure.
Are you 12? Like, what
I
is
for
this?
one
Is this a
would
weave?
love a tough from the streets version of I Love Lucy.
Why?
Why
Who is
not?
that
Why
for?
not?
Is that for you
It's
specifically?
for me specifically.
We already had that. It was called Maud. B. Arthur was in it, and it was great. You can get it at your library. It's
And then
actually a very good
there's
show. She got an abortion at one point. Anyway.
Great.
So what you were saying about sort of the female characters is the one good thing though is that it doesn't linger on it. It's not like, hey, let's have a shot where it's like, you know, focus on their legs and go up to their face.
Oh,
It's like,
shit. There is no male
you know,
gay stuff
Yeah.
whatsoever.
no shit like that.
Like, no.
Sort of
Like,
thing.
any male gay stuff you get to see is supposed to be gross because it's when Kaori gets assaulted and they rip her top off. And you're just like, no, this is
Yeah.
not titillating. This is gross. And you should feel
And
gross
Yeah.
watching it.
It's like it's definitely meant to make you uncomfortable, not to titillate you.
Yeah, like, there
Yeah.
is no male gay stuff in here. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
That's so
Pretty much.
refreshing. Like, just, oh, like, I don't know. Anyway, I just, honestly, if you've never seen this movie, just do yourself a solid and check it out.
Yeah, just block out 2 hours and
Yeah,
watch
you
it.
can make the time for it at this point, probably.
I mean, yeah,
very easily.
we're all under quarantine right now. You've got 2 hours you can
we
fill
can't
somewhere.
leave, so may as well watch it.
You need
for
to
us
eat.
specifically. You gotta eat. At least in North America right now, this is on Hulu. I'm not sure for how long,
Yeah.
but you can see both the sub and the dub. I believe that there was a version of it that was on YouTube as well. I'm not sure where you guys found it, but like you can find this thing easily.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you can rent it, no problem.
The DVD is probably the most dirt cheap anime DVD ever.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, hey,
because
get
there's
it.
so many of them.
I was gonna say,
Pretty much.
contrary
They-
to like any other anime movie we do,
I know, it's like £90
Yeah.
for this or like Haruhi Suzumiya, and it's like, no, stop.
Yeah, I know. And it's not under like the Studio Ghibli like lock and
Yeah,
key.
yeah.
It's like they have a new Disney vault for the fucking Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah.
Except for the UK, I guess,
Yep.
because you
Oh.
guys get it on Netflix.
I am writing in that the fact that all the Ghibli films are on Netflix. I'm just like, yeah, boy,
Son of a bitch!
be jealous of
Running
me.
it over us.
It's
Yeah.
I would do the same thing.
When we did Mary and the Witch's Flower, we had it on Netflix, and Angus had to go out and buy it.
Yes.
That's right.
Good
Is
times.
that true? I forgot that you had to buy it.
That's unfortunate.
I felt bad, man. I didn't know you had to buy it. If
It's
I'd
cool.
known that, I
It's
would
cool.
I would have just told you to torrent
I-
it because you didn't like it that much.
Just
I
find
mean,
a stream. It's fine.
Here's the thing, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you say that, but even then, it's like, I just never like the idea of torrenting. I mean, for one thing,
I don't either. It feels
Yeah.
gross. and also people worked on it, you know.
Yeah, that's kinda my
But
thing.
if it's Redline, I'm fine with it because Redline was. Anyway,
Mine
I
is
don't want to
on
bring that
like
up.
stars or something
I
right
know
now. I
it's
lost
my
my
Guernica.
fucking
I hate
mind.
it so much.
I almost wanted to watch it, but I was like, do I hate myself enough right now to watch this?
Don't do it.
I have a copy of Redline, and now every time I look at it, I just remember Tracy's
If
anger.
I have to see that fucking super eye patch wolf video, like, look, I can get that he wants to recommend stuff. I'm just like, dog, this script is garbage.
Wait,
I'm
who's
sorry.
recommending this?
Huh? There's a YouTuber named Super Eye Patch Wolf that had made
Oh.
a video that's like, why you need to see Redline, and I'm like,
You
I
don't!
don't.
2 seconds long in giant text. You don't.
But like, okay, I'm gonna stop bringing it up. I swear.
One day. One day we'll be done with it.
That day is not
Interesting.
today.
Not today. So,
But no, seriously, just I guess just to wrap up, any other final thoughts or whatever, then we'll just start doing handles.
just all I have to say is animators, or really anyone into the medium of anime, please just go watch it.
yeah, just
Please.
watch
Yeah,
this.
Please.
oh my god, I can't recommend it enough. Like, this should be on your list along with Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Snow White. I would say honestly,
Yeah.
Gertie the
Aw.
Dinosaur, Felix the Cat. Like, these are all fundamentals. Like, just even if you're not the biggest anime fan, for the love of God, watch it.
Just
it's
watch
so
it,
good.
trust
And,
me.
well, and also the story is engaging enough to the point that
Yeah.
you'll kind of forget that it's animated after a while because you just start appreciating the storytelling that
Yeah,
much.
it's just so good.
Yeah. Oh god, it's great.
So,
Yeah.
Angus, where do we find you on the internet? What are you working on?
You can find me on the internet on Twitter at Angus_beer, and I'm currently working on my game Sunset Witch X still.
That's right.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've been seeing that stuff, man. It looks cute.
Thank you.
You've been getting very dark with the sprite work. I like it.
I've been getting very dark. I thought,
Yes.
let's bring out the inner Akira. It has to come
Yeah.
out. So yeah.
There's just bleeding milk everywhere. It's very avant-garde.
Well, now that I've heard what Rob said, let's not do the milk.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
All right, and how about you, Meekly? What are you working on?
As of I'm actually taking a break from college. Well, one, because it shut down, but about a few months
you
ago, I
physically
just
can't go there right now.
well, a few months ago, I decided to take a bit of a break and take a step back because of the stress.
That's fair,
and
dude. Yeah.
That's valid.
and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Meekly Sheepling, and I recently started to revive my DeviantArt and started posting my work there little by little, so you can check me out there under Meekly
Hell
Sheepling
yeah.
also.
Nice.
Hell yeah, cool. Look into that. All right. How about you, Robin? Where can they find you?
As always, I am on Twitter at lobster_writer, Instagram lobsterwriter no underscore. In the last year or so, I've gotten back into sewing and embroidery, so that's
Yeah, I've been
Nice.
seeing that. You've been putting a lot of that stuff up on Instagram.
that is
Pretty
pretty
cool.
much all my Instagram is at this point, is my sewing projects.
Like-
Because with all this time, I've gotten 4 done
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the last 2-3 weeks. So
Hell yeah.
Tracy, where do they find you? What are you up to?
Thank you, Robin. They can find me on Twitter and Instagram via @TCTroush. I've been doing a lot of sewing stuff, been doing some artsy work things. I've actually been I've been trying to do more character concept things recently, so I'm going to be putting those up fairly soon too.
Ooh.
But
Neat.
I'm just trying to stay busy, man. I
mean,
need to get
aren't
off
we
the news
all?
cycle. I'm so mentally drained every single day.
Yep.
I'm trying to not drink that much. It's not
Oh,
working.
see, I failed that last week. I got way too drunk. But
Yeah.
I found that what I need to do is just not spend time on fucking social media.
No,
It helps
I
so
just want to.
much.
I
Gosh.
just want to go for a walk and then keep walking,
Yeah,
like
just-
Forrest Gump style. And then
see where
eventually
you
I've got
go.
a full beard, and I'll just be like, I'm running for Jenny, and they'll be like, Who's Jenny? I'm just like, I don't know anymore. She's not who I thought she was. She's dead now.
I
But
would enjoy
Kenny.
seeing Tracy
yeah,
with a full
Kenny.
beard.
I'm running for Kenny from South Park.
God damn it. Motherfuck. All right. So that'll do it for us.
I guess that's it.
That'll do it for us this time. Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you so much for coming on, Angus.
Yeah,
and
thanks
Meekly.
for-
It was
pleasure.
great having you all back
Oh,
on.
Thanks for
I'd
joining
love-
us on this.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
and for our madness that is this just this in general.
Enjoyable
I was like,
madness.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Standard. I mean, you guys were here for it before, so I guess you knew what to expect.
Yeah.
It's always a fun time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. You don't have to lie for me, but when you do, you know I love it. All right. Take care, everybody, and thank you for listening.
Bye.
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 Hey guys, thanks again so much for listening. Our intro is Photosynthesis by Halc, and our outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or tell a friend to check us out. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter via @lobster_writer and @TCTroush. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everybody. Maybe Bojack's been a secret weeaboo this whole time. Who knows?